Catskill, New York. D'Amato's Boxing Gymnasium. Thursday evening, March 15th, 1984, 6:30 p.m. The day's regular training has concluded, but the real education is about to begin. Evening discipline sessions are sacred time in Cus D'Amato's program, when technique is refined, psychology is developed, and the mental aspects of championship boxing are installed in young fighters' minds. Mike Tyson, 18 years old, sits on the ring apron listening to Cus discuss the philosophical foundations of boxing greatness. But Mike's attention is elsewhere, his confidence inflated by weeks of dominating every sparring partner, demolishing every challenge, hearing constant praise for his devastating natural ability. At 18, Mike is experiencing the dangerous phase that destroys many promising fighters. The moment when natural talent creates the illusion that coaching is unnecessary, that innate ability supersedes learned wisdom, that youth knows better than experience. Cus D'Amato, 77 years old, recognizes this psychological development immediately. He's seen it in Floyd Patterson, Jose Torres, and dozens of other talented fighters who reach the point where success bred arrogance. How a trainer handles this critical juncture determines whether a prospect becomes a champion or a cautionary tale. "Mike, your left hook is becoming lazy," Cus observes, rewinding video footage of today's sparring session. "You're dropping your hand after throwing it, instead of returning it to proper defensive position. Against quality opponents, that lazy recovery will get you hurt." Mike barely glances at the video screen. "Cus, I dropped everybody today. My left hook is fine. Better than fine. It's perfect." The gymnasium grows quiet. Other fighters pause their equipment cleanup, sensing tension developing between the legendary trainer and his most promising student. Everyone understands that Mike is challenging more than technical correction. He's challenging Cus's authority, wisdom, and role in his development. "Perfect technique doesn't exist," Cus responds calmly. "Every punch can be improved, every movement refined. Champions are made through constant adjustment, not through assumption of perfection." Mike's frustration boils over, fed by 18-year-old pride and the intoxicating belief that his success validates his methods. "Cus, I'm already knocking out guys who've been boxing for 10 years. I'm already better than any heavyweight prospect in the country. Maybe it's time to admit that some people don't need as much coaching as others." The statement hangs in the air like a challenge. Mike has just suggested that his natural ability has outgrown Cus's teaching, that his talent supersedes his trainer's knowledge, that the student has surpassed the master. Cus studies Mike with the calm assessment of someone who's navigated similar confrontations throughout 50 years of developing champions. This isn't anger or disrespect. This is a gifted young man testing boundaries, questioning authority, asserting independence. How Cus responds will determine whether Mike's career reaches its potential or crashes into the wall of unchecked arrogance. "Mike, let me understand what you're saying. You believe you've learned everything I can teach you. I'm saying maybe I don't need as much help as you think I do. I'm already devastating everyone you put in front of me. Maybe natural talent is more important than technique when you have enough of it." The gymnasium falls completely silent. Mike has just articulated the philosophy that destroys more promising fighters than any opponent ever could. The belief that talent alone is sufficient for greatness, that coaching becomes unnecessary once ability reaches a certain level. Cus nods slowly, not with agreement, but with recognition of a teaching moment that requires careful handling. "You think you can develop yourself better than I can develop you?" Mike's 18-year-old confidence provides the answer. I think I'm already developing pretty well on my own. I don't need someone telling me my left hook is wrong when it's knocking everybody out. Other fighters exchange glances, recognizing that Mike has crossed a line that no student crosses with Cus D'Amato. Questioning technique is acceptable. Challenging authority is not. Cus stands slowly, his 77 years evident in his careful movement, but his mental sharpness absolute. Mike, you just said something very important. You said you don't need my help anymore. You said you can do this without me. Mike realizes he's pushed further than intended, but 18-year-old pride prevents backing down. I didn't say I don't need you. I said maybe I don't need as much help as you think. No, you said you don't need your help anymore, old man. You said you're already better than any fighter I ever trained. You said you can do this without me. Cus's voice remains calm, but everyone recognizes the steel beneath the surface. Mike's face flushes with embarrassment and anger. He did say those things, driven by frustration and arrogance, but hearing them repeated makes them sound harsher than intended. Then prove you can train yourself alone. The words carry absolute finality. Not anger, not emotional reaction, just matter-of-fact challenge that places responsibility exactly where Mike claimed he wanted it, on his own shoulders. What? You heard me. You don't need my coaching. You can do this without me. You're already better than any fighter I've developed. Prove it. Train yourself for the next 2 days. No coaching, no advice, no interference from the old man who's apparently holding you back. Mike blinks, not expecting this response. He anticipated argument, emotional confrontation, the kind of dramatic clash where he could storm out feeling justified. Instead, Cus is offering exactly what Mike claimed he wanted: complete independence. Fine, Mike says, trying to project confidence he doesn't entirely feel. Fine, I'll show you I can do this myself. Cus nods acceptance. Good. Friday and Saturday, you train alone. No coaching from me or anyone else in this gym. You develop your own training plan, correct your own technique, motivate yourself through the hard work. Sunday, we'll evaluate how well you did without the help you don't need. Friday morning, Mike arrives at the gymnasium with determination to prove his independence. But within hours, cracks begin showing in his self-directed training approach. Without Cus's structured guidance, Mike struggles to organize productive training sessions. He works the heavy bag intensely, but without specific technical objectives. He jumps rope with determination, but without the timing drills that develop ring rhythm. He practices combinations, but without the defensive awareness that makes them effective against counterpunching. By afternoon, Mike realizes that Cus's coaching provided invisible structure that made training sessions productive rather than just exhausting. Without that structure, Mike's natural talent has no framework for continued development. But pride prevents admission of difficulty. Mike continues training alone, telling himself that independence is just a matter of adjustment, that he'll find his rhythm without external guidance. Saturday morning brings deeper problems. Mike wakes up sore from unstructured training that worked his body without developing his skills. His usual training motivation feels different without Cus's psychological preparation, without the mental conditioning that transforms physical work into championship preparation. Most challenging is the technical analysis. Mike watches video of his training sessions but lacks Cus's experienced eye for identifying subtle flaws, inefficient movements, defensive lapses that quality opponents will exploit. His perfect left hook now looks different without Cus's analysis, but Mike can't identify specifically what needs correction. By Saturday afternoon, Mike is struggling with problems he never recognized Cus was solving. Training sequence optimization, technical error identification, motivational psychology, strategic development. The countless small adjustments Cus made daily that kept Mike's development progressing smoothly. Saturday evening, Mike sits alone in the gymnasium, frustrated by 2 days of unproductive training, despite working harder than usual. His natural talent remains unchanged, but without proper guidance, that talent isn't translating into continued improvement. Cus enters the gymnasium as Mike finishes his workout, not to interfere but to observe how his challenge is proceeding. Mike expects "I told you so" commentary, but Cus simply watches in silence. "How's the independent training going?" Cus asks finally. Mike's pride wars with honesty. "It's different, harder to stay focused without structure." "What else have you noticed?" Mike hesitates, recognizing that honest assessment requires admitting Cus was right about needing guidance. "I can't see my own mistakes as clearly as you can. I know something's wrong with my technique, but I can't identify what specifically needs fixing." Cus nods, understanding. "What else?" "The training doesn't feel as purposeful. I'm working hard, but I'm not sure I'm working smart. Everything feels random instead of building towards something." "Anything else?" Mike swallows his pride completely. "I miss the coaching, not just the technique stuff, but the motivation, the strategy discussions, the way you help me understand what I'm trying to accomplish. Training alone is lonely and inefficient." Cus approaches Mike with the gentle authority of someone whose point has been proven without need for humiliation. "Mike, you have tremendous natural talent, more than any fighter I've ever worked with. But talent without guidance is like raw power, without direction. It's impressive but ineffective." Mike listens with the humility that comes from genuine learning experience. "You said you were already better than any fighter I've developed. That might be true in terms of raw ability. But Floyd Patterson and Jose Torres didn't become champions just because they had talent. They became champions because they combined their talent with proper development, expert guidance, and willingness to keep learning even when they thought they knew everything." Cus gestures toward the ring where Mike has spent 2 frustrating days trying to coach himself. Coaching isn't about limiting your talent. Coaching is about maximizing your talent, directing it efficiently, helping you see flaws you can't see yourself, providing structure that transforms raw ability into championship performance. Mike nods, understanding flooding over him. "I thought I didn't need help because I was knocking everyone out. But knocking people out in training isn't the same as developing complete skills for championship competition." "Exactly. You can probably beat most fighters right now on talent alone. But to beat the best fighters, to become champion, to stay champion, you need complete development. That requires guidance from someone who's been there before, who can see the path clearly because they've walked it with other champions." Mike extends his hand to Cus. "I'm sorry, I was arrogant and disrespectful. I do need your coaching. Not because I'm weak, but because even strong people need guidance to reach their potential." Cus shakes Mike's hand, but more importantly, he places his other hand on Mike's shoulder with fatherly affection. "Mike, questioning authority is natural at your age. Testing boundaries is part of growth. But remember, the goal isn't to prove you don't need help. The goal is to become so skilled that you can help others." The reconciliation transforms their relationship permanently. Mike never again challenges Cus's authority or suggests he doesn't need coaching. Instead, he becomes Cus's most dedicated student, absorbing every lesson with the appreciation that comes from understanding its value. Sunday morning, training resumes with new energy. Mike works with fresh understanding of how Cus's coaching amplifies his natural talent rather than restricting it. Every technical correction is received gratefully rather than resentfully. "Your left hook is still lazy," Cus observes with a slight smile. "Let's work on tightening that defensive recovery." "Yes, sir," Mike responds immediately. "Show me exactly what I'm doing wrong and how to fix it." The 2 days of independent training become foundation for Mike's development over the following year. He never forgets the frustration of trying to guide himself, the inefficiency of unstructured talent, the loneliness of working without mentorship. Years later, after becoming heavyweight champion, Mike always credits Cus's tough love approach for teaching him the relationship between talent and guidance. "Cus taught me that being gifted doesn't mean not needing teachers," Mike tells interviewers. "It means needing the best teachers, because gifted people can waste their gifts easier than ordinary people can waste theirs." 2 days without coaching taught me more about its value than 2 years of having it. Cus uses the incident as teaching tool for other fighters, demonstrating that even the most talented students need guidance to reach their potential. Mike learned that independence isn't about rejecting help. It's about using help so effectively that you eventually become capable of helping others. The lesson transcends boxing training. It's about the relationship between talent and mentorship, about humility as a prerequisite for continued growth, about understanding that even exceptional ability requires guidance to reach its full potential. Everyone in the Catskill gymnasium learned that lesson watching Mike's 2-day experiment in self-coaching. Mike learned it most directly, trading his arrogance for appreciation that would define his relationship with Cus for the rest of their time together. And when Cus D'Amato died in 1985, Mike's grief was intensified by complete understanding of how much guidance he was losing, how irreplaceable proper mentorship becomes once you truly understand its value. The gymnasium in Catskill still operates, hosting fighters who face the same temptation that challenged Mike, believing talent alone is sufficient for greatness. But veterans will tell newcomers about the day Mike Tyson learned that even champions need coaches, and why that lesson made him a better fighter and a better person.